Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Norwich Talk for another transfer rumour video. Yes, the first transfer rumour video for quite some time. The last one, I believe, was Dimitris Giannoulis, who obviously came to join Norwich and has been very good since signing. But that was the last one. And now, as a disclaimer, I will just say that this video is inspired by Mr. Connor Southwell of The Pink, and he wrote an article writing about this player, which will be left in the description box down below. So make sure you go and check that out. Of course, it's a very good read, as it always is with Connor. Now, we're here today to talk about a player called Sam Beukema. Now, in terms of pronunciation, that's what I'm going to go for. I think that's right. It probably is right. Fingers crossed it's right. A Dutch centre-back. Now, again, as I say in these videos, you'll see next to me some text, and that's up there to sort of make these videos a little bit easier to follow. So when you see text popping up, that's what it's going to be. Hopefully, it makes the video a little bit easier to follow. But as I said, Sam Beukema, if that's, if the pronunciation of that is wrong, or if you think it's wrong, make sure you let me know in the comments down below and how to say it right. So just to go through what we know about him before we then go on to ask a sort of bigger, wider question within sort of Norwich City's potential transfer activity. We'll go through what we know about him. So he's 22 years old, born on the 17th of November, 1998. He's 6'1". He's from Holland. He's naturally a centre-back playing for Go Ahead Eagles in the second tier of Dutch football. Go Ahead Eagles, I assume, is a direct translation of a team name, perhaps, I don't know. And they are currently 5th in that division. And I was looking at the points, and they're within a shout of second, which is fairly decent. And there's a comment in the article from him that expresses his sort of desire to get up the ladder into the first tier of Dutch football. He said that he doesn't see a ceiling for himself, which is brilliant. That's ambition, and I absolutely love to see that. But yeah, the first thing I'll do before we get into sort of the questions, again, is nudge you in the direction of Connor's article. It's good, as I said, it always is with Connor. And an interesting thing, which is mentioned, is that Eintracht Frankfurt are also interested, who are a Champions League team. So Norwich City could potentially be battling with another team for this player. And also, apparently, a work permit seems unlikely, but I don't think that will really sort of deter Norwich from signing him if they want him. It'll then just be a case of bringing him in, sending him out on loan to get sort of the requirements to then be able to play for Norwich City. It's about as straightforward as that, or it is to me anyway. I'm sure Stuart would tell you otherwise. But that's sort of all the things you need to know. A very interesting thing about him as well is that he scored 7 goals this season from centre-back, which is quite a few goals for a centre-back. Usually you're looking at 2 or 3, probably headers from corners, but 7 is fairly decent. And also, Transfer Market tells me that he can play, has played, however you want to look at it, in left back and also central defensive midfield, which again, versatile. It's a word that gets sort of tossed around by me, especially fairly loosely these days. But it's a very interesting potential signing. Now, the thing, it's kind of difficult to find information on him because he's not really that easy a person to research. Again, Connor's article is a good thing for when you're looking at solid facts. But the reason I want to make this video is because it does raise an interesting question about next season and how Norwich City approach the Premier League. Fingers crossed the Premier League, that is, of course. I don't want to get too carried away. But you look at the 2019-2020 season as a prime example where Norwich went in a little bit underprepared. Now, I know you can't really predict the injury crisis, but now Norwich City have been through that process. I think it will be in the back of Stuart Webber's mind, the back of Daniel Farke's mind, that you're going to want to go in with reinforcements. So you're not playing Alex Tettey, Ibrahim Amadou in centre back. That would be disastrous. And I think Norwich's centre backs this season choices are a little bit thinner, aren't they? You've got Ben Gibson, Grant Hanley, Christoph Zimmermann as your 3 main choices. And my sort of looming point is that those 3 players will not see you through a Premier League season. And that is not a question of their quality. That is based off their injury track record. Christoph Zimmermann is a very injury-prone player. We've seen that throughout his Norwich City career. He is the worst of the 3 centre-backs. Grant Hanley, again, apart from this season, has been injury-prone throughout the seasons as a Norwich City player, hasn't he, of course? And this season, where he's not been injured, he's played very well, which is a compliment to him. Ben Gibson, in his 2 years at Burnley, was sort of injury-prone, then fell out with the club, of course, and he's now expected to be out for the rest of the season, which I know is a bit of a freak injury, a very painful injury as well. But for me, those 3 players aren't going to see you through a Premier League season. So I think it absolutely makes sense that we're signing a centre-back. It's a weird one. Again, I want to temper my expectations because, as Connor rightly mentions in this article, you look at Norwich, who will theoretically be committing, is the word I'll go for, to Giannoulis and Gibson in terms of if we go up, we're going to sign them. And then that's what's that, 8 + 7 million, 15 odd million committed from the transfer budget. So I don't think we can expect sort of a big name, a household name, to be signed by Norwich in this window, which is where a player like Beukema sort of slots in as a typical Norwich City signing, really. But the interesting question is whether he can get that work permit, which again, it seems unlikely. But for me, the most interesting thing about this signing is the fact that it raises the question of, are Norwich City going to look to bring in more centre-backs? Now, I do intend to make a couple of podcasts probably, on who Norwich City should be signing in the summer transfer window. And I think Beukema's name is probably going to go on there because he's a centre-back and Norwich City are interested, obviously. And I think, again, I mentioned this earlier, Frankfurt are also interested, a Champions League quality club, and he's only 22. And I think a player like Todd Cantwell, for example, has taught me that 22 is still a young age. I know when you're 22, you're not really considered sort of a hot prospect anymore, are you? It's sort of usually the 18, 19 range where you're considered that. But Todd Cantwell, for example, a player who's developed a little bit later, is a prime example of why 22 it still is a very, very young age. 6'1" is an interesting height for me. You look at Ben Gibson and Grant Hanley now, they're both, and they must be, 6'3" and 6'4". Christoph Zimmerman, I know for a fact, is 6'4". The guy's a giant. So it's interesting to see what sort of role he'd play, although it fits more with Connor's description, which is sort of he's described as a ball-playing defender. Now, if we can get a specifically ball-playing defender, that would be great. Zimmerman, Gibson, and Hanley, they can play with their feet quite well, but that's not the speciality. We don't have any out-and-out ball-playing defenders. I think that's a fact. Well, it's not a fact, but that's my opinion. I think it's probably a fairly popular one as well. So it would be interesting to see a player who is literally dedicated to being a ball-playing defender. Obviously, I can't speak of Beukema's quality because I've not seen him play, as I'm sure you haven't, but it would be very, very interesting. And you look at this idea that he scored 7 goals, so he must be okay at getting up the pitch, theoretically anyway. But yeah, I think the question that I'll give to you just now is, do you want Norwich City to sign this player? Do you want a centre-back in general? Are you committed to this idea of Beukema, or is this just sort of your classic international break transfer news? How do you sort of view this? A good example this season as well, I almost forgot to mention this in terms of how important depth is. As I'm sure I don't need to go over this, but I will anyway. You look at Sheffield United this season, Man City in the past, where centre-backs have got injured and it's just been disastrous. Now, I know we experienced that last season, but you look at Sheffield United this season, it's been a bit of a disaster for them, hasn't it? They've had key players injured at the back, and that means they can't play out from the back and play their little Chris Wilder system, Wilder, who's no longer there. So when you don't have reinforcements in centre-back, it's a recipe for disaster. I'm very interested to see what actually happens with Beukema, to be honest with you, because from sort of the impression that I get from Sam's monthly loan reports, which we'll be doing this month fairly soon, I'm interested to see how the club sort of view Akinfenmewo and his progress. His stats in League One with Charlton have been fairly decent, as far as I'm aware, and his clean sheet record has been phenomenal. So I'm interested to see whether he's ready to make that sort of jump up. You look at Ben Godfrey as an example. He was playing in League One or League Two. I think it might have been League Two with Shrewsbury, and he made that massive jump up to the Championship and then the Premier League, and he did so very well. So we shouldn't write off this idea of players. Well, not that we have, that's a crazy comment, but we shouldn't write off players potentially coming from much lower, sort of lesser quality divisions into the Premier League, of course, as we know as Norwich City fans. Now, I believe this is probably a shorter video than what I would have liked to have made, but at the same time, there is sort of very bare knowledge on this this player specifically. But again, it's a very interesting one. It's an interesting case study. And this definitely will not be the last transfer rumor video. We've got a video coming up about Will Volks, who is apparently more likely to be signed by Norwich. And that one involves a little bit more money. And again, it raises an interesting question about players who will be here, who won't be here next season. Again, all very interesting stuff. So in the comments down below, let me know your thoughts on the whole centre-back situation, how you sort of see Norwich City approaching the summer transfer window. I'm very keen to know your thoughts. If you could leave a video, that'd be brilliant. If you could leave a thumbs up on the video, that would be awesome. And if you enjoy these videos, why not consider subscribing? I would really appreciate that. So until next time, we'll see you again very, very soon.